you cruising through life not always knowing what direction you were headed? Let Live on Purpose with Dr. Paul Jenkins be your guide. Live on Purpose will give you insights into your life and show you how you can become the driver and captain of it. No more aimless wandering. By learning the principles that govern happiness and wealth, you will be able to make personal progress that you have only dreamed possible. And now, here's your host, the shrink who expands your life, Dr. Paul.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Live on Purpose Radio. This is Dr. Paul, the shrink who expands your life. I'm excited to bring you another life-expanding experience today. I had an interesting opportunity just this past week to hear a presentation from a friend of mine, and these are some people I've been associated with for quite a while, but I've learned some new things about them, and one of the things that I learned is that my guest today has authored a book. And this is something I didn't know until this week. And I was so excited about the topic of this book. This particular show is going to be coming out the week of the 4th of July, 2008. And I was racking my brain a while back to think through, okay, well, what can I do to acknowledge some of the issues that I think are important for the 4th of July? And obviously patriotism and love of country and some things like that come into mind. Well, today's guest is a perfect addition to the Live on Purpose Radio lineup of shows. I want to introduce Zane Taylor. Say hello, Zane.
Hello, Dr. Paul.
I'm so glad you're here with me today. Let me give a little introduction of who you are, okay? I got to know you probably, a decade ago, maybe a little more, when I moved into the same neighborhood. And I got to know you and your wife, Beth, and had some associations with you there in the community and in the church that we both attend. And just kind of got to know you as a member of the community. Now, you are a veteran of World War II. Is that correct?
Yes, Doctor.
And there's not a lot of those left.
I understand that about 1,000 die a day of World War II veterans.
Is that right?
Some say 2,000 a day.
Well, there were a lot of people involved in this war. And in fact, you've put in this book of yours, you've put in some of the statistics and how many people actually participated in the war. Now, I come from a background where both of my grandfathers fought in World War II. And one of them died in May. So he was one of the 1,000 that month, or however many you said are going each time. But I have another grandfather who fought in World War II. And I thought about inviting him to be here on the show today. He doesn't talk about it a lot. Have you found this too, that some of the veterans just don't want to talk about it?
There are so many things that happen in the war that you don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. But I had enough things to put in a book that I could talk about. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really happy to be here with Dr. Paul, and I must say that I respect anyone who works with people who may have problems of the mind and body and any other kind of problems. And so it's an honor for me to be here, Dr. Paul.
Well, I'm just thrilled to have you with me. You know, I'm intrigued with what it is you've done. And I think that your generation and the people who remember World War II, as you say, you know, they're dying now. They're getting up in age, and some of them still have injuries or conditions that were left over from the war. There's a lot of issues involved there. But I think we're losing sight of a really important era in our history in the United States. And there are some important things to remember about war and what it is and what's been done on behalf of everyone in this country by the people who served. And that's something that I really want to emphasize as part of this program. Maybe we could talk for just a minute about about this book that you wrote, and we'll come back to this toward the end of the program too. You wrote a book that's called Lessor Heroes. Can you tell us just a little bit about where that's coming from and why you even wrote this thing?
Because I had so many wild and common experiences as an infantryman in the war, in Patton's Third Army in France, Germany, and the Battle of the Bulge. I thought I needed to put these experiences on paper because I have many grandkids and great-grandkids and family. And then someone decided they'd print the book for me. And so the book is a tribute to all who served in the war, all the military people, plus all those people who stayed home and worked on the aircraft lines and the tank lines and did their jobs. And so this Lessor Heroes means there are many heroes that are not touted or that you never hear about them. And so the book is a tribute to them too.
Well, you have a section in this book, I was just noticing this last night, where you put in there's a lot of informational things. You put some pictures in here of different aspects of the war and the equipment that you used and the people that were involved. And then there's a table, and I'm not finding it right off, but you put in a table here about the different wars that the United States has been involved with, how many people were involved in those wars, how many casualties there were. And as I was looking through this, oh, here it is. It's on page 300 for any of you who are following along at home. On page 300, you put in here, for example, wow, and you've done a lot of research here, haven't you, Zane? The Revolutionary War was fought from 1776 to 1783. 200,000 people participated in that war, and it shows here that 4,435 were killed, 6,188 were wounded. And then that's just an example. It starts with the Revolutionary. There's the War of 1812, the Mexican War, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War. We get down here to World War II, which was fought from 1941 to 1945. And there were 16.5 million people who participated. Does that mean
military
soldiers?
People.
Military
people.
And is that just the United States or from all sides?
That was just from the United States.
Okay, so this doesn't include the German soldiers, the Japanese soldiers. 16.5 million Americans. American soldiers participated. And of that, how many were killed?
Over 400,000 were killed and 650,000 wounded. And they're Americans, not other people.
Those are just the Americans. So this doesn't include all of the casualties on the other sides. It doesn't include, for example, all of those Jews that were exterminated by Hitler and his forces. 650,000 wounded, 400,000 killed in the war.
That's right.
You know, Zane, we were at when you and I were at this event just a couple of days ago. You came and presented some things to a group of people, and there were several war veterans there, and one of the guys chose not to share any of his experiences. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And he was actually in the Korean War. But he chose not to share those experiences because people who were close to him were killed. And many times killed in the presence of their buddies. And you know about this. You've witnessed this. This is what makes it so difficult for people to talk about sometimes, because war is real. And as you say on the back cover of your book, war is hell.
It is. Well, I left out a few experiences because they're hurtful to me, and I lost some buddies. It was very interesting that we would get replacements to those guys that were wounded or killed, and they would join our unit, our squad, and maybe I'd get to know their first name, like Joe, and pretty soon, a day or two later, I'd say, "Where's Joe?" "Well, he got wounded yesterday." I didn't even get to know that person. And we'd get replacements on and off during the months that I was there. Some people you didn't even get to get acquainted with, you know. But a group of guys, about 8, 9 of us, survived for 4 months together. And so we bonded and we became great friends.
Now, this is the group of soldiers that's depicted on the front of your book.
Yes.
And if you want to see this picture, just on the website, liveonpurposeradio.com, we're going to put up a link to this book so that any of you listeners can get connected with this. But the picture on the front is this squad that you're talking about.
That's right. A fun group of guys, very serious, very friendly, and we worked together to succeed. But finally, 2 weeks after I left the war, the Battle of the Bulge, 2 of those great guys were killed by one artillery shell. And I think about those 2 guys a lot in my life because we were close together and they were fun kind of guys. And I don't know why they were gone, and I'm still here, but all of those guys on the book are now gone. But I've had one of them come out and spend 2 weeks with us. He and his wife came from Chicago. So we had a chance to tell stories and have fun together.
I'm sure you grow very close to the buddies, the comrades, those people who are so close to you during those times of battle. What an enormously stressful thing to go through. And as you go through it with people, it draws you closer together.
When we can talk to each other, you know, after a short battle or artillery or mortar shells, or we were actually strafed by a German plane, and we got out of that. And to have someone to talk to about the experience is very helpful, and so that's why we became such good friends. Somebody to talk to, no one else. Nobody really cares about you. The officers are too busy trying to direct activities, where we're going to attack the next day, how we're going to attack, and so many things like that.
Well, when we come back from this first commercial break, I want you to share a few of those experiences, and we'll talk about the principles you've learned as a result of being involved in that experience.
This is Ross Kellen Moore of Creation Tree Coaching, and I've got 2 questions for you. Who are you? What do you want? You see, I've figured out that you and I can absolutely create anything that we really want. But to do that, we've got to be absolutely clear on who we really are and what we really want. So what do you want? More financial abundance? More fulfilling relationships? A higher level of health and fitness? How about finding your work that allows you to create massive value for others in the way that you love most? Welcome to Creation Tree Coaching. We are the world's premier provider of abundance, education, and resources. We are here to help you create the life you really love. Begin now at creationtreecoaching.com. Check out our live teleseminar classes and podcasts. Get to know our coaches and schedule a coaching session. Explore training for your business and employees. Welcome to Creation Tree Coaching and a whole new world that you create on purpose.
This is Kirk Weisler to tell you about morebetterbooks.com. Morebetterbooks.com is where you can find more better books for a more better life. Not only that, let me tell you about some of the very fun and cool select titles on morebetterbooks.com. You'll want to get a copy of The Dog Poop Initiative. This best-smelling book could change your life forever. It's certainly changed the lives of thousands of Boeing employees, as well as school teachers, parents, leaders across the United States and in Israel and in Germany. And you can get your own copy at morebetterbooks.com. Whoa, that's not all. What about The Cookie Thief? This classic tale told in a rhyming format, fully illustrated with very fun hidden messages. Pick up a copy now today on morebetterbooks.com. Other great titles there: Finding Your Pathway to Mastery, Beyond Illusions, Make It Great. These titles are only available on morebetterbooks.com. Go to morebetterbooks.com today and begin to have a more better life and live that life on purpose.
Welcome back. I'm here with Zane Taylor, who is the author of Lessor Heroes. And this is really, it's an autobiographical kind of a sketch of your experiences in World War II as a soldier for the American Army and some of the guys that you became familiar with there. You know, I was thinking, Zane, as we were going through that last commercial, I was thinking that the world of war is so different from the world that we are used to in a free America. But the whole reason that we even have a free America is because you guys went out there and did this. Talk a little bit about what it means to you. What this, the military, for example. And you might share a little bit. I've heard a little bit about your story about how you got into this in the first place. Because you were planning on going to school, weren't you?
Oh, yes. I was drafted into the Army and thought I was going to school because I took a test and passed the test. And we got in 13 weeks of basic training before school. All of a sudden they said, "You're in the infantry. You're not going to school. And so you're going to train some more to be an infantryman." And after about 7 months total of training, we were over in France. We went through England, but we went directly to France. And that first night that we joined my outfit on the line, the 35th Division, 320th Regiment, Company C, were on the line facing the enemy. And so we crossed over to where they put us on trucks. And they said, "We can't take you to the front line until it's dark, and we'll take you as far as we can go in trucks." We got up there and dropped a few of us off at each spot, and we walked through trees, joined our squad, and there's a squad of about 8 or 10 men there, and I met my squad for the first time. And in the meantime, well, all the time that we were moving at the front, there were shells, artillery shells, dropping randomly here and there. And when I got time to talk to my sergeant after meeting the guys, I said, "What about these shells that are dropping close by?" He said, "Oh, don't pay any attention to them. The enemy just dropped some around to kind of keep you on the edge."
Oh, boy.
And I said, "Yeah, but I don't want one of those shells that hit me the first night I joined the unit."
Or any night that you're there, really.
So that was a little interesting evening that night, trying to get used to a few shells for about 2 or 3 hours.
Now, when you say shells, this is something that probably a lot of our listeners aren't familiar with, what that even means. But these shells are huge. Well, they're shells.
They're like a bomb.
It's like a bomb, but it's fired out of a tank or a cannon of some kind, a howitzer, and they shoot these things, and you can hear them come screaming in, can't you?
You can hear them unless they land on you.
And then you don't hear anything.
They miss you.
Oh, boy. So you hear them falling, and then they explode when they hit.
As soon as they hit. So it's a huge noise, and shrapnel flies all over, and so you don't want to be within 50 to 100 yards.
And shrapnel, I used to not even know what that was.
When the shell explodes, it shatters into little tiny pieces, and they fly all over.
So these little metal pieces that used to make up the shell itself, As soon as it explodes, boom, it just sends those flying out in every direction.
Oh, yes.
And those little pieces of metal can kill you.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And that's how your two buddies died, right?
Yes.
That
Two
had
of my best friends, 2 weeks after I left the front line in Bastogne, Belgium, in the Battle of the Bulge, they were in a truck and got shelled, and they jumped out of the truck, but a shell lit right to the side of the two of them. And so they were, one immediately killed, one wounded, and later died in short
from
time.
his injuries. Wow. So the shell doesn't have to hit you, but if it hits near you, it can explode, and that shrapnel can get you.
Yeah, you don't want to be, like, say, within 50 yards of the shell.
Now, how you were telling me also about sometimes you'd get a command to dig in.
Oh.
So what does that mean?
Well, the very first attack that I went on, and that was 2 or 3 days after I joined my outfit, and we'd received a few shells. But they moved us to a point where we were to attack the enemy. And we formed a line and walked slowly towards the enemy. And we hadn't gone more than 300 or 400 yards, then shells, artillery shells, began to land among us. And we were given the order to dig in, which means dig a foxhole that you can get your body below the level of the ground.
So you had to physically dig a hole in the ground to hide in.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't help you if the shell lands right in your hole.
Oh, no.
But if it lands nearby, that gives you can get below ground level, and then the shrapnel passes over the top of you.
That's right. And
Okay.
I got my trench digging shovel out and dug like fury. I set a new world record for digging a foxhole in the shortest length of time.
I bet dirt was just a flying.
And finally got my head below ground, my body below ground, my legs below ground, my feet below ground. The last thing to go in the hole is your feet. And you dig between shells landing. The shells land maybe every 10 seconds, every 15 seconds, or every 30 seconds. So you have a few seconds to dig in between shells.
Wow.
So I finally got below ground and thought I got hit in the back with some shrapnel. And I couldn't feel any blood. Come to find out that the shrapnel had hit into the side of the foxhole, just above my body. And so I wanted to get that shrapnel, but my sergeant wouldn't let me stay there.
Oh, you wanted to go back for it later?
After the shelling, I said, I'm going back and get that piece of shrapnel. And he said, no, you're not. We're moving out. So anyway, that foxhole saved me. There were not many wounded that day because we dug in.
So this is just one of the routines that you had to learn when those shells start coming in. You just start digging like crazy and hope and pray that you could get cover before something hit.
That's right, Doctor.
Wow. You know, it's amazing to hear these experiences, and I'm thinking this has to have been a life-altering experience for you.
There were so many things I learned. I learned to have confidence, how to handle disappointment. You know, we'd have surprises. We didn't know each morning what we were going to run into, whether it was going to be a machine gun, we were going to get some plane strafing us, artillery shells or mortar shells.
Now, you've said that a few times, strafing. What does that mean?
It means that a fighter plane comes over and strafes the area. It nearly always happens when we were moving on a road, down a road with a column maybe 5 miles long of infantrymen marching on a road. They would shuttle us in trucks, but you had to walk a lot of the time. They'd come back and pick you up in the truck and take you up front and dump you off. Well, while we were on the road one day, we got word through a radio, officer's radio, that a plane was strafing our line back down the road.
And that means he was shooting at you.
He was using those machine guns on the plane to strafe the road. And the thing you want to do is get off the road as far as you can. So when we got word the plane was coming up the road towards us, we ran into the fields as far as we could run. We thought we had time and dived down and then pass on. Mm-hmm. Well, the second plane that strafed us, we got word it's coming. I could see a village. We were right on the edge of the village, and I was near a little village home. And I said, should I run out in the field or should I run inside the village? And I ran as fast as I could to the village and opened the door and got in the back, and the bullets ran down the street from the plane right behind me. I made it in about.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
There's probably a number of times when you could have or maybe even should have been killed.
Well, if you read the book, I think you'll fully understand that I had extra help from above because I was very fortunate not to get hurt worse than I was. And
you know, this is an interesting topic because I've talked to some people. I think a powerful experience like being involved in the war has a different effect on different folks. And I know that for some people, it strengthens and solidifies their faith. And for other people, they don't get as connected, or maybe they think that they want to blame God maybe for the war. And it's interesting to see that. It sounds like, and from what I know about you, this was an experience that really anchored your faith. This is something that brought you closer to God.
Well, I've told you before about I learned to pray from my grandmother. And when I got in the war, it was prayer every day. It wasn't just once in a while. And so I'm sure I was blessed. I was in the right place at the right time, and I was spared many things that happened to other guys. And I really feel like it strengthened my faith because I was taught to not be afraid of death. I was not afraid of dying, but I was a little bit afraid of how I was going to die. Because each day you wonder if it's going to be a piece of shrapnel, a bullet, or something else.
Wow, fascinating experiences. We'll be right back after this next break. Thank you for joining me for the Live on Purpose radio podcast. It is truly an honor to be a part of your prosperity team. Please visit my website, drpaul.org, to get connected with other tools for you and your family. There you will find links to my weekly e-zine, Empower, Harnessing the Power of the Mind, and to the free Parental Power teleconference that I host every week with my wife, Vicki. You can also check out upcoming events or pick up powerful information products. Feel free to contact me directly with questions, comments, or to book me for your company or private event. Email me through drpaul at liveonpurposeradio.com.
I've got a great idea.
This is Shay Larson, IdeaOrbit.com, with the World of Ideas Report.
Those who teach children all too often have to say the following statement: stop leaning back on your chair. Or how about, that is going to break that chair? In fact, did you know each year over 7,000 injuries are reported in British hospitals alone due to children seesawing on their chairs? Worldwide injuries reach the hundreds of thousands each year. One British teacher finally decided to do something about this. His name is Thomas Keisel, and his new invention not only stopped children from rocking back in their chairs, but he retired as a teacher because his product was so profitable. He calls it Max. Max is a chair design where the back legs of the chair are bent backwards a little. This makes it virtually impossible to lean back. By keeping all four legs on the ground, Thomas's chair is keeping children out of hospitals. His chair is becoming widely popular as he is receiving orders from schools all over. Congratulations, Thomas Keisel, on a grounded idea.
This is Shay Larson, IdeaOrbit.com, with the World of Ideas report.
I've got a great idea. Wouldn't you like to know? You probably can't.
You know, I commented a little bit earlier that there's not a lot of people who still remember World War II. And my grandparents do. My parents remember a little bit, but they were born in the 40s. Okay, so there's not a lot of people who still remember, at least very clearly, World War II. And it occurred to me, and I asked you during the break, Zane, how old you are. And you're going to be 83 next month, right?
Oh, you told them.
Was I not supposed to say? 83. And you've seen a lot in those 83 years. 2 weeks ago, I interviewed 2 people on this show, and together they added up to 12. I had 2 6-year-olds on the show.
That's great.
And so we've interviewed a wide variety of people here, and I'm eating up this experience. You've seen things that I have never seen, and you've experienced things that I've never experienced. But you know, it's interesting in life, the experiences that we have teach us things. And just before the break, we were talking about your faith and how your grandmother had taught you to pray. And when you got over there to France and you landed on that beach and you found out that, you know, things besides rain fall from the sky, you had to get pretty close to your Creator pretty quick. And your faith carried you through. You learned about sincere prayer. I'm sure that some of the prayers you offered were not the kind that sometimes we do, you know, that become really routine and really just kind of mechanical. But I'm sure it was really heartfelt, a really heartfelt connection.
I'm so grateful that I had faith and was able to know how to pray. And when I joined my outfit, my sergeant was quite religious from the South. And he recognized me. And when I told him who I was and my faith, about my faith and so forth, he named me Zacharias.
Zacharias,
so
huh?
During the months I was in the war, I was Zach. That was my nickname.
Oh, really?
So everybody called me Zach and Zacharias. And so he thought I was really religious because, you know, I didn't drink coffee or liquor or didn't take part in the cigarettes. Everybody got my share of the cigarettes because you got cigarettes.
Oh, I'm sure they appreciated that.
You got 3 in every pack they gave you, you know. But it was great to have that kind of faith and be respected by my sergeant, too. And I credit him for being alive because he looked out for me and he looked out for our squad. If we were to attack, he would talk to the officers and say, okay, where are we going to go? I want to know where I'm taking these people, this squad in the Army. I want to know where we're going. Is this the best way to go? And there were times he refused. When we crossed the river, he said, I'm not going across there. Another time where we were to go out over a field and attack a forest on the other side. said, I'm not taking my men out there because 2 or 3 squads had already been shot to pieces out there, and he wouldn't take us. Mm-hmm. And I got into it a little bit, too, with some officers at the time. Mm. I told them myself, after he did, I said, this is crazy. You're going to kill us all if we have to go out there.
Wow.
And finally, at that time, they did stop our attack.
Well, this is, that illustrates a couple of different things. You've talked a little bit about the bond that forms. And as you go through these difficult experiences, you come closer together with those that you share the experiences with. And I think this is true in families and in marriages and in many aspects of life. Some people have these adversities or these hard things happen to them, and instead of pulling together and forming that bond, sometimes they'll have contention or they'll start fighting with each other or allow it to drive them apart. But I think when push comes to shove, when your life is on the line and you're sharing this experience with other people, it has a power to really bond people together. Is that something that you've seen as well?
We did that many times. The time I was caught out on the field one time with one other guy, and we had to come together, and I had to bind up his shrapnel wounds. And I'd never met the guy before, and we were together just for a short time and lived together for a couple hours, and I saw him after we got free from this. But that short time we bonded, and because we were together with a larger group, the squad, we bonded really well. And I think we developed an attitude. You could feel bad for yourself being in the war, and say, I just got to get out of here. What's going to happen?
Oh, this is terrible.
But if you say, we're going every day, we're going to do it, this is our responsibility. And I think our squad had a good attitude about moving ahead and not taking the downside all the time.
Well, now you're really pushing my buttons because attitude is one of my favorite things to talk about. And I've become convinced that your circumstances in life just don't matter that much. That's just the stuff of life, and then you can take that and you can do whatever you will with it. I'm sure you saw this in the war, too, that there are people who had that kind of attitude where it was just, okay, here's our responsibility, here's what we've got, let's do it. And there are others who would just kind of melt down into what I call the victim mode, where, woe is me, and this is terrible, and I can't handle this.
I saw a few of those. One morning, we heard a couple of shots. It was in snow in the forest, and we heard 2 shots, and we wondered, where's the enemy? Are they attacking? We didn't hear anything from our officers, but we found out 2 guys had shot themselves in the foot. Each one shot the other guy in the foot so they could get off the front line. Well, that's corporal punishment, to do that.
Well, maybe, is that where the saying comes, shoot yourself in the foot?
Yeah, maybe.
People do this, though, They'll think that their circumstances are so bad that they can't handle it and then do something to get themselves out of the responsibility, but the thing that they do to get themselves out of it actually puts them in a worse position.
Yeah, they definitely were in a worse position. Yeah. Besides the wound they got, they face a court-martial in the Army. And that's another thing we learned, is to respect authority. When someone tells you to do something, you got to do it, and you better be ready. And that's why we trained 7 months before we got there, doing nothing but physical activities and following commands. Here in the States, we followed commands. We had to do things, practice, and that made us strong. Or we couldn't pack the 40 to 55 pounds that we were carrying.
Just the physical conditioning that's required. Because everything that you had to carry with you.
Yeah.
Who's going to carry it if you don't? right?
There was no storage place back of the front line that would hold any of your stuff. So whatever you carried, whatever you owned, you carried. And so, like my friend carried a bugle for a little while. Somebody gave me a little pair of French binoculars that I used to watch the enemy with, and I carried those. And I carried anti-tank grenades because I was an anti-tank grenadier. I was assigned that job. So, anyway, yeah, there's so many good things that came out of it, along with many bad things, but tried to focus on what it helped me to face and do in this life, and it's helped me so much in this life.
You know, a lot of people build up all kinds of expectations of what their life's going to be like. I'm sure as soon as you hit the front lines in a major conflict like World War II, that all of that other stuff becomes insignificant. There's nothing else that really matters that much. Talk for just a minute about handling disappointment, handling changes, handling surprises that come up in your life, because this is what war's all about.
Yeah, we had so many of those in the war. Well, it started out with me not making college and going to the infantry.
Right, because you were planning on going off to college, learning some things, and then going back to work, probably.
Yes, a mission, college, and then to work. And I missed the mission, but I got to college later, and that was great. But we found out that each day was a surprise. So we could be disappointed in a hurry about what we expected each day. In other words, maybe we thought we were in a safe position. Like one of the things I thought I did well, as we advanced, I would look for a place to hide. In other words, if there were a low part of the land, or if there was trees, or if we were shot at, or artillery, I would go for the safest place I could find. And I thought that helped.
You learn to scope that out in advance and just be ready. You know, we just watched a show not too long ago with the family. It's called Dan in Real Life. And it's just this new movie that has come out. It's just this entertainment thing. But one of the things that caught my attention, toward the end of the show, he said, sometimes people ask me about my plans. And he said, you know, I've learned enough in life to say that, well, I plan on being surprised. And that's not a bad approach, I think. If you can just realize that things aren't always going to be the way that you expect them to be, and be ready for that, you know, and you can do things like you were saying, you know, as you would advance, you'd look for, okay, what's the safest place? How can we, in the event of something that happens, how can we maximize the chance that we're going to survive it and that we're going to be able to keep our group safe, you know? And you can do that too, but plan to be surprised. We'll be right back with one more segment.
Hi, this is Jason Adams, one of the co-founders of CashflowParadigm.com. We created Cashflow Paradigm as a way to help others look at money differently. What are your beliefs about money? Is it good or bad? Many people have beliefs that limit their control over money and don't even realize it. The thing most people don't realize is that their beliefs about money greatly affect the amount of money and prosperity they have. It's all about your paradigm. Come play a fun game with us called Cashflow 101, created by best-selling author Robert Kiyosaki. Come meet new people and check your paradigm as we learn principles that govern our personal and financial lives while having fun together. Currently, we are holding monthly game nights in Provo and St. George, Utah. Go to our website at www.cashflowparadigm.com to register for upcoming events. That's www.cashflowparadigm.com.
Raising kids is one of the most challenging and rewarding experiences we can have in life. Your children didn't come with an owner's manual, so it's up to you to learn whatever will assist you in your role as a mom or a dad. Join me and my husband, Dr. Paul, for a free weekly discussion about all of the hot topics in parenting. Listen to what others are saying about these calls.
By applying the things I've learned through the Parental Power calls, I'm finally becoming the mom I always thought I would be.
I really like to use Parental Power as kind of like a reference book. So as I have concerns with my parenting, I like to be able to look up on the blog and then listen to whatever podcast seems closely related. So I like the variety of topics, the variety of age groups that are addressed.
I'm on the Parental Power calls as often as I possibly can because I know I'm going to come away with something I can apply to being a parent that very day.
Let us join your parenting team through Parental Power. Just send an email to Dr. Paul at liveonpurposeradio.com to register for the live calls. Or just check us out first through the link at drpaul.org. All of the previous calls are posted on our blog site, where you can also add your own input. Let's team up to start parenting on purpose. Well, we're back, and there's a piece here, Zane, that I really want to emphasize in the last segment of our show here today. It's been fascinating to talk to you about some of your experiences with World War II, what you've learned from that. We haven't even scratched the surface of all of the principles that you've learned and the ways that this has changed your life. I'm so glad that you have written this book. And again, let's plug that for a minute, and we'll come back to this at the end too. It's called Lessor Heroes, and that title itself just acknowledges that, you know, we've heard of the great war heroes. There's General Patton, and there's Dwight D. Eisenhower and Churchill and all of those guys. We know all about the great heroes. But there's all of these lesser heroes that we may or may not heard of. One of those is Zane Taylor, sitting right in front of me here today. But what about all the people at home? And I've got Beth here in studio too. She's not on the mic, but she was saying during the break that she got to know you, Zane, after the war. And yet this was a part of your experience too, Beth, as you were at home and you knew a lot of people who were gone and all the prayers that went up for those people. And I better put you on mic if you're going to say something, though. She's saying they had to have stamps to buy everything that they had. The shoes, the shirt, the rationing, because all of that effort was going to the war effort to provide these soldiers with what they needed to secure the freedoms that we enjoy so regularly today. So regularly. You had to save everything. Beth, maybe we should put you on a mic. We could do a whole hour just with you, couldn't we? Well, this is coming down to, I think, one of the crux messages of today's program. It's the 4th of July this week. We're all going to celebrate the independence of this great country that we have. World War II was fought because there are other ideas that people had. I'm thinking of Hitler. You mentioned some of these here in the front of the book, Zane. In fact, you got a picture of Hitler and Mussolini.
I purchased about 6 pictures of leaders like Patton, Eisenhower, Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Churchill, and
Hirohito
and MacArthur, because I wanted people to see what those people looked like as they read about them and to understand a little bit of history.
So I'm looking at this picture, and it's got Mussolini and Hitler. It looks like they're riding in a car.
Yes, in Germany.
And this man, Hitler, had this idea that was very different from the American standard and ideal that we have, and was causing all kinds of death and destruction and chaos in the world, and was planning on rolling that forward. Well, here's Zane Taylor thinking, hey, I think I'll go to school and learn some things and have a normal life. And yet Hitler's thinking, no, I'm going to take over the world and do some things the way I want to do it. And you guys were over there to make sure that that didn't happen, and that we could retain the freedoms and the liberty and the rights that we have as a free country. And I really want to emphasize that. I know that you have a great love for this country.
I was fortunate when I was about 11 years old to have a teacher who was in World War I. And he didn't get into combat, but he was in France. And he taught us, and he brought his rifle to our class, and he taught us to be good citizens, support your country. And so I credit him with my love of the country. And I love this country because freedom and the right to do the things you want to do are so important to everybody. And
tell me how you would like to see people respond. For example, if there's a parade and the flag comes by. What? Because you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Some people just ignore it and they just sit there. And
it's very hard for me to see people who will not at least respect the flag and this country. They may not like everything we do, and we do things wrong sometimes, but we still have the choice of in this country to do most of the things we'd like to do. So it kind of hurts if I see somebody disrespect the flag and won't salute it or won't take their cap off long enough to put over their heart, you know, and show true respect. And, you know, I love this country so much.
Well, and there's, you know, I think of some of the words of Abraham Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address when he was talking about how we honor those who have gone before or who have fought for our freedom and gave what he called the last full measure of devotion. And you've witnessed this, Zane, as you were there on the front lines and you saw people who literally gave their life for this country and for the freedoms that we enjoy. And for us to take that lightly is, I think, a huge disrespect to those men and women who have given us that gift to start with. But it also shows that we really don't appreciate what we have. Freedom is not free. Freedom is not free. It is purchased at a great price.
And we must stay with that and fight for it. I honor and respect those in our military now. They're doing a great job, and I respect all those who have served in the past, you know. And anybody who supports our country and willing to give time and effort.
You know, I was going to lunch with a friend of mine, and this is a man that I respect a lot and that I've learned a lot from. And we went into a little restaurant. It was just a little fast food place. I don't know, Wendy's or something. And as we went in there, there was a soldier who was in there eating, and he was dressed in the military fatigues, and it was the Desert Storm look, you know, with the camouflage sand look. Anyway, he looked really sharp, and he was dressed up there. And this friend of mine, before he went to order, he walked over to this serviceman, and he said to him, "I just wanted to thank you for your service." And it really touched me. It was this acknowledgement. He didn't have to. He went out of his way to go over there and said, and just he shook his hand and he said, "I just wanted to thank you for your service." And that meant a lot.
We had the opportunity in Belgium, in Bastogne, to go in a restaurant, and the people knew who we were, and the mayor of Bastogne come up to us and asked who we were, and we told him we were in the war there in Bastogne in Belgium. And he took us around the city and showed us and had so much respect for us. And it really meant a lot to us In fact, in France and Belgium, some of those countries, they have a lot of military equipment in their groups and little clubs. And I have a friend over there now who's going to all the little celebrations over there right now that they have for being freed back then.
It's such a valuable gift. And I really don't think that we fully appreciate how much we have been given by those who are willing to go out. You know, even just, this is a totally different example, but, you know, you go to the store and you buy a package of hamburger. Okay? And apologies to those of you who are vegetarians, but we like to eat some hamburger and some meat every once in a while. Well, I go to the store and I buy a package of hamburger. I don't have to be the one who's out there raising the cow and who slaughters the cow and who does all of the dirty work to get to that package of hamburger. In a similar way, here I am enjoying these freedoms every day. And every one of us have freedoms that we didn't personally purchase. They were bought for us, and someone else did the dirty work. And the very first story that you share in your book, Zane, after the personal history section, there's a personal history in the front, and you go through some of your war experiences and what you've learned from that. And you told an experience of, being under some machine gun fire and just playing dead, just lying there and expecting that you could be shot at any moment. And I'm thinking, I am really grateful that I don't have to go crawl on my belly or come under fire or take shrapnel to have my freedom, but somebody has done that for me. And my hat goes off to you. I'm not wearing a hat right now, but I was the other day and I took it off. And my hat goes off to you. Zane, before I let you go today, your experience is priceless and it's compelling and you're willing to share it, and that's why you've written this book. I'm going to put a link on Live on Purpose Radio where people can buy the book directly. And I want to encourage all of you. Here's one way to give your thanks to at least one veteran from World War II, but also in this way, I think you can honor all of those others that went out there and fought in our behalf. So I want to encourage people to get the book, not only because it's a great example of what can be learned from this kind of an experience, but just a way to thank you and others who have done this. You're also willing to speak, though. And in fact, I ran into you at an event where you were speaking and sharing some of your experiences. How can people get in touch with you if they would like to talk to you about maybe having you come and speak at their event or just have an exchange with you and correspond? What's the best way?
Do you do phone numbers?
We can if you'd like, or emails work well for this group.
Okay, email.
Okay.
ZACKT@juno.com. That's Zach T, ZACKT @Juno.
And that was your military nickname.
Zach.
Zach, even though your name's Zane. Zach T, ZACKT @juno.com. So you're all right with people just jotting off an email if they want to, even if they just want to thank you for sharing your story. But you're also available to visit people's groups. You've got a number of really interesting visual aids. You've got grenades and rifles and packs and all kinds of things that you can bring to show people.
I have everything I carried, including the bullets and hand grenades.
It's a fascinating presentation. But for me, it just raised my awareness to what it is that we're dealing with here. Thank you so much for being here on my show today, you and your good wife, Beth. And she's got some great insights, too. If they email you, they can get in hold of both of you, right?
Without Beth, I could not have done this.
And that's a great acknowledgement as well. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. It's an honor to be here.